Jeremy Corbyn.
Madam Deputy Speaker, in this sombre and very serious debate today, there are two fundamental points I want to make. The first is that we've all been inundated overnight and the past couple of days with emails from constituents and many others who are very worried about the plight of those that are trying to get out of Afghanistan, the numbers of people that ought to be supported, and the approach that the British government has taken on this. Members will have seen letters from the NUJ concerning journalists and their safety, from the UCU concerning a University College Union concerning their students in this country and their fears, and many others, including people representing trade unions in Afghanistan, as well as asking the government clearly what is their strategy for allowing people to come to this country. Because it's clear all those that have worked for the British Army or any other organisation in Afghanistan should be allowed to come here. Likewise, NGOs, but I would also add to that those that have worked for contractors that have been contracted to the British or to the American services as well. They're just as vulnerable in the future. And if we are to be serious about ensuring that all those refugees that wish to come here are able to get in, then the government has to do two things. One is respond to the very generous requests made by a lot of local authorities. I saw a letter last night from the leaders of London Labour Borough Councils offering everything they can to support refugees coming to this country. But they need the financial support to be able to house them, accommodate them, and ensure they can be integrated into our society. But it also means a change in the rhetoric from this government about refugees in general. We cannot be holding out the hand to say we're going to welcome all the Afghan refugees here, and I hope we do, if at the same time we're passing legislation which will criminalise those that save life at sea of people trying to flee to get to this country to a place of safety. If we are an open and welcoming society that does welcome refugees, then we should mean it for refugees wherever they come from, not just Afghanistan. And I hope the government will bear that in mind and will give us a very clear outline of how the people are going to get out of Afghanistan, how they're going to get here, and how they're going to be processed when they do get here. Because too many of us represent constituencies where there are refugees living who don't have enough support, are begging, are homeless, are street sleeping while their applications are endlessly processed. That is not the sign of a society or a government that is actually holding out the hand of friendship towards refugees. The other general point I want to make is this. This war has cost the United States $1 trillion. It's cost this country tens of billions of dollars. It's cost the lives of tens of thousands of Afghan people. It's driven many of them into asylum or refugee status in all the neighbouring countries. It's taken the lives of American soldiers and almost every other nationality that were involved in it, including 457 British soldiers. And at the end of it, the trauma of those that served there and the trauma of those that were injured there and the mental health issues that pertain to soldiers coming out of service are huge and likely to be exacerbated by what's happened over the last few days. And so we do need to ensure there is proper support for those that have served or suffered, have served and suffered in Afghanistan, but we also need to have a serious appraisal of how we got there in the first place. Any examination of the longer-term history of Afghanistan will show that wars in Afghanistan do fail. There were 3 in the 19th century and a number in this century. The great game of the 19th century was about preventing Russia getting control of Afghanistan. Later on, the Cold War took over and the Americans supported the opposition to the Soviet Union, thus forming the Mujahideen, which morphed into the Taliban and so much else. There are some serious historical lessons to be learned here about how we take major foreign policy decisions. And it's beyond disappointing that the Prime Minister's response this morning appeared to be that he was not prepared to countenance a serious inquiry into all of this. I can hear my friend, the late Paul Flynn, speaking about the numbers of soldiers that died in Helmand. I can hear all those that spoke up against this intervention, not because they support the Taliban, not because they are not serious about human rights, but because they were serious about a long-term peace in the world that recognises the historical position we've got ourselves into. And now surely is the time for a sober reflection on the disaster that has happened in Afghanistan.
Hear, hear.